Imagine a day when the fate of all Western civilization swayed on the waves of the Mediterranean. A day when the seemingly invincible fleet of the greatest empire in the world sailed to crush Christian resistance once and for all. A day when one revolutionary weapon forever changed the rules of naval warfare. Before you is the story of the Battle of Lepanto, fought on October 7th, 1571, and of the secret weapon that decided the fate of millions. If you are fascinated by stories of military strategy, technological breakthroughs, and turning points in history, subscribe so you don't miss new episodes. To understand the magnitude of what happened in the Gulf of Patras, we must go back several decades to a world on the brink of collapse. The 16th century was an era of colossal transformations. Empires clashed, borders and cultures shifted, and the very course of human history changed. The Ottoman Empire, under Sultan Selim II, was the most formidable power in the known world. Their armies had captured Constantinople in 1453, ending 1,000 years of Byzantine history and opening the gates to a new era of expansion. The Ottomans swept across Eastern Europe, conquered Hungary, besieged Vienna, dominated North Africa, and turned the Mediterranean into what many now called a Turkish lake. Their fleet was the embodiment of maritime might. Long, narrow galleys, propelled by rows of oars, sliced through the water with terrifying speed. Each carried hundreds of rowers, often Christian slaves, and above them stood elite infantry, the janissaries, ready for the brutal hand-to-hand combat that followed every boarding. The Ottoman strategy was simple and devastatingly effective. A rush forward powered by synchronized oars, a bronze ram crashing through the enemy's hull, grappling hooks latching onto the sides, and then the chaos of close combat. Scimitars, bows, arquebuses. They had perfected this method over generations, but Ottoman supremacy rested on more than steel and discipline. Their administrative machine spanned 3 continents, mobilizing immense resources. The shipyards of Istanbul could launch a finished galley in just a few days. Trade routes bound Asia and Europe, pouring in riches that financed ever more ambitious conquests. Suleiman the Magnificent had built a perfectly oiled war machine. Selim II inherited it. Christian Europe, meanwhile, was fractured. The Reformation had split Christendom apart. France, though Catholic, made pragmatic alliances with the Ottomans against the Habsburgs. England was preoccupied with internal affairs and the growing Spanish threat. Only a few sounded the alarm. Philip II's Spain, the empire on which the sun never set. The Republic of Venice, whose trade arteries were being strangled by the Porte. And the Papal States, where Pope Pius V saw a threat to Rome itself. The spark came with the Ottoman conquest of Cyprus. The Venetian stronghold, which had held out for nearly a century, fell after a siege lasting more than a year. In August 1571, the capital Famagusta capitulated. Commander Marcantonio Bragadino was promised safe passage, and instead was brutally executed, flayed alive, and his skin displayed as a trophy in Istanbul. Europe was horrified and finally ready to unite. Through diplomacy, religious zeal, and shrewd promises of reward, Pius V forged the impossible, an alliance between Venice and Spain, joined by the Papal States, Genoa, Savoy, the Knights of Malta, and the Order of St. Stephen. In May 1571, the Holy League was born. Each member pledged ships, men, and resources. Spain would supply the core of the fleet and its financing. Venice, unmatched naval expertise, and the Pope, spiritual leadership and mediation. Command was given to Don Juan of Austria, just 24 years old. The illegitimate son of Charles V and half-brother of Philip II, he had already proven himself in Granada. Brave, disciplined, and capable of inspiring fierce loyalty. The Holy League's fleet assembled in Messina. Over 200 galleys and galleons, a masterpiece of logistics and uneasy cooperation. Among them, something new and controversial: the Venetian galleasses. Massive floating fortresses with 4.5 decks, dozens of cannons, and hulls reinforced for the recoil of heavy guns. Each stretched over 40 meters, displacing several hundred tons. Their bow-mounted artillery fired 20-kilogram iron balls over great distances, while smaller guns along the sides created fields of death. It was a new philosophy: destruction at range rather than boarding. Veteran captains scoffed. Too slow, too cumbersome, too dependent on the wind. But Don Juan saw their potential as anchors of the line, forming kill zones of uninterrupted fire. He placed 6 galleasses at the front, 2 before each division. The decision would prove decisive. The Ottoman Admiral Muezzinzade Ali Pasha led nearly 300 galleys. His plan was classic: strike fast, envelop the wings, crush the center in a closing pincer. His right wing was commanded by the seasoned Mehmed Sirocco, his left by the feared corsair Uluj Ali, an Italian convert known for brilliance and ruthlessness. At dawn on October 7th, near the mouth of the Gulf of Patras, the fleets sighted each other. Don Juan arranged his forces in 3 divisions, forming a line nearly 3 miles wide. On the left, Agostino Barbarigo of Venice. On the right, Giovanni Andrea Doria of Genoa. And in the center, Don Juan himself. Ahead of them, the 6 galleasses waited. By noon, the Ottoman galleys surged forward. When their vanguard closed to about 1,000 meters, the galleasses opened fire. 20-kilogram iron balls tore through wood and flesh alike. Shattered oars, splinters, and smoke filled the air. Within minutes, several Ottoman ships were wrecks. The psychological blow was immense. The boarding assault was broken before it began. Yet the Turks pressed on. Many galleys slipped through the storm of fire and crashed into the Christian line. Rams biting, hooks flying, men leaping to decks. At the center, Don Juan's royal galley grappled with Ali Pasha's flagship. For 3 hours the fight raged. Janissaries against Spanish tercios, arquebuses blazing at point-blank range, blades flashing in the crush. To the north, Venetian fury burned bright. Barbarigo, struck in the eye by an arrow, refused to leave the deck and still prevailed. To the south, Uluj Ali outflanked Doria, forcing him to stretch his line and creating dangerous gaps. The corsair captured the flagship of the Knights of Malta, threatening to collapse the entire flank. But Don Juan's reserve, led by Alvaro de Bazan, the Marquis of Santa Cruz, counterattacked and restored the line. In the center, an arquebus shot struck Ali Pasha dead. His head was raised on a pike. The Sultan's banner fell, and the standard of the Holy League rose in its place. The Ottoman formation, already shaken by the galleass's fire, began to crumble. The Gulf was surrounded by land, the escape route blocked. What followed was slaughter: ships captured, grounded, crews taken prisoner. By evening, the outcome was clear. Of nearly 300 Ottoman galleys, more than 200 were destroyed or captured. Around 30,000 dead, 8,000 prisoners, and 15,000 Christian galley slaves freed. The League lost about 8,000 men and 13 ships. The myth of Ottoman invincibility was shattered in a single day. Celebration thundered across Europe. Bells rang, processions filled the streets, and Pius V established October 7th as the Feast of Our Lady of the Rosary. Don Juan became the hero of the continent. But politics took its toll. The Holy League soon dissolved. Venice, eager to resume trade, made peace. Spain turned its focus to the Netherlands and England. Don Juan died of typhoid at 33 in 1578, far from the glory of Lepanto. The Ottomans rebuilt astonishingly fast, over 200 new galleys in less than a year. Yet something had changed. The aura of infallibility was gone. Their westward expansion in the Mediterranean was over. The galleasses had shown the future, a transitional step toward the ships of the line that would dominate the 18th century. The seeds were sown. The Spanish Armada of 1588, defeated by English maneuver and artillery. Trafalgar in 1805, where Nelson triumphed. The 19th century's steamships, the 20th century's torpedoes, submarines, and aircraft carriers. The principle endures. Innovation defeats numbers and habit. More than 4.5 centuries have passed. The Ottoman Empire would collapse after the First World War. Spain's Empire of the Sun would fade. Venice would become a museum. Yet the lesson of Lepanto lives on. Traditional advantages can be overcome. The invincible are vulnerable. Technological shifts change the balance faster than anyone expects, and in moments of existential threat, even rivals can unite. Finally, the spiritual dimension. For people of that time, Lepanto was not only tactics and steel, but providence itself. The cross on the mast, the confessions on the decks, the prayers of Pius V, all part of the strength that gave meaning and courage. Whatever our modern perspective, we cannot understand this event without recognizing the faith of those who fought and prayed that day. The secret weapon of Lepanto was not just 6 Venetian galleasses. It was the willingness to think differently, to challenge the canon, to risk the present for the sake of the future. That day, in the Gulf of Patras, they decided not just one battle. They changed the course of naval warfare and shifted the balance between Europe and Asia. The lesson still echoes today. Innovation, leadership, and unity can overcome even the greatest of obstacles.